and we're going to travel to another part of the cyberspace, as it's known, the dark web. And you won't find it on any internet search engine, for this is a netherworld of secret websites used by criminals to buy and sell drugs, exchange paedophile images, and shift stolen goods.
Step into the shadows of criminal empires that operate in the dark, beyond the reach of law.
More than 700 people have been arrested in Britain and tens of millions of pounds have been seized after the police infiltrated a top-secret communication system used by criminal gangs.
Discover how syndicates rise, spread globally, and maintain their control with chilling secrecy. Don't miss out on the untold story that will leave you questioning everything. Rise of syndicates. In the early 1980s, a new force began to emerge, quietly weaving its web across the criminal underworld. At the heart of this transformation was the rise of criminal syndicates that operated beneath the surface of society, staying hidden but growing in power. These empires, often ruled by figures like Pablo Escobar and John Gotti, were able to remain untouchable by governments, evading justice with ruthless precision. With operations spanning across countries, these syndicates controlled everything from drug trafficking to money laundering. They hid it in plain sight, using legitimate businesses as fronts. What made them dangerous was not just their criminal activities, but their ability to silence anyone who threatened their existence. The 90s saw a shift, as syndicates like the Yakuza and Russian Mafia also began to expand, reaching global influence. They had learned how to navigate through every corner of the globe, leaving no trace except for their reign of terror. And with every passing year, they grew stronger, more complex, and harder to take down. Secrecy tactics. Criminal syndicates have always relied on secrecy to operate unchecked, creating intricate networks to ensure they remain hidden from law enforcement. In the 1990s, organizations like the Sinaloa cartel perfected the art of invisibility. They employed sophisticated tactics such as coded messages and encrypted communications to evade detection. Using corrupt officials and paid informants, they were able to stay one step ahead of law enforcement. Their business dealings were conducted in shadowy corners, with operations running through shell companies and legitimate enterprises. They used couriers and hidden routes to transport illegal goods, making it nearly impossible for authorities to trace. In addition, many criminal empires would conduct operations under layers of fake identities, ensuring there were always several layers between them and the illicit activities they controlled. This made it near impossible for authorities to infiltrate or dismantle these criminal networks. The darker side of these empires was shrouded in secrecy, keeping their true power hidden for years. Global reach. By the 2000s, criminal syndicates had expanded their operations globally, establishing connections across continents. The Kinahan cartel, for example, reached far beyond its base in Ireland, forming a vast network stretching through Europe, Asia, and the United States. They controlled everything from drug smuggling to arms trafficking, all while keeping their influence in the shadows. These criminal groups often worked with local gangs, strengthening their foothold in foreign markets. They learned to exploit international trade routes, using ports and airports to smuggle contraband without detection. With the rise of digital communication, they could stay in contact with their global partners, ensuring operations continued seamlessly, regardless of borders. The connection between these criminal organizations was not just limited to their illegal activities. They also infiltrated legitimate businesses, ensuring their financial growth and avoiding scrutiny. By the 2010s, these networks were operating on a scale that governments struggled to control, with their reach felt in nearly every corner of the world. Global reach. In the early 2000s, criminal syndicates began to stretch their influence beyond borders, establishing a far-reaching network that spanned continents. The Kinahan cartel, for instance, expanded from its origins in Ireland to parts of Europe, Asia, and North America. Their operations reached into the underworlds of Spain, Dubai, and the United States, with a complex system of money laundering, drug smuggling, and arms dealing. These groups became transnational, forming alliances with local gangs in other countries to help carry out their illicit operations. The globalization of their activities meant they could tap into different markets, ensuring the flow of illicit goods and services across various regions. Through these global connections, these criminal empires became stronger and more untouchable, capable of influencing political and economic landscapes. As these syndicates grew in size and power, they evolved into complex criminal enterprises with the ability to manipulate entire systems, making it difficult for any one country to take them down. Their global reach was one of the key factors that allowed them to thrive for decades. Law enforcement. As criminal empires expanded globally, law enforcement agencies faced growing challenges in bringing them to justice. The task was nearly impossible due to the sophisticated methods used by these syndicates to protect their operations. From encrypted communications to corrupt officials, these groups knew how to stay ahead of the authorities. Agencies like the FBI, DEA, and Interpol found it increasingly difficult to infiltrate these organizations. The syndicates used layers of security, including secret meetings and fake identities, to keep their members safe. They often employed hackers to disable surveillance systems, making tracking their movements a challenge. Even when law enforcement managed to make arrests, powerful connections and vast resources allowed the syndicates to influence legal outcomes, ensuring their operations continued. The sheer size and reach of these criminal empires made it a daunting task for authorities, and as a result, many of these organizations operated with near impunity, sometimes for decades. The battle between law enforcement and criminal syndicates became a complex game of cat and mouse. Tech and crime. By the 2010s, criminal syndicates began to embrace technology, using it as a powerful tool to advance their operations. Groups like the Mexican cartels and Russian Mafia turned to encrypted communication apps and dark web marketplaces to carry out illegal activities without being tracked. Advanced technology allowed these empires to move money across borders at lightning speed, bypassing traditional financial systems. Using cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, they could launder millions of dollars, making it nearly impossible for authorities to trace their illegal earnings. Moreover, tech-savvy hackers were employed by these groups to breach security systems, disable surveillance cameras, and hack into government databases. This allowed them to evade detection and stay one step ahead of the law. As technology evolved, so did the tactics of criminal syndicates, making them even more elusive and dangerous. With digital tools empowering these criminal empires, the battle for control became a race between tech-driven crime and the law's ability to keep up. Legitimate fronts. Criminal empires have long been experts at hiding their illicit profits by using legitimate businesses as covers. From nightclubs to real estate, these businesses act as fronts, making illegal money appear clean. The Colombian drug cartels in the 1980s were pioneers in this method, using companies in the US and Mexico to launder their drug money. One of the most common methods was purchasing expensive assets, such as luxury cars, hotels, and yachts, which could be sold for profit. They also invested in seemingly legal industries, like pharmaceuticals and construction, allowing them to funnel dirty money into legitimate transactions. These investments helped them establish credibility in the business world, making it more difficult for authorities to trace the origin of their wealth. By disguising their earnings through these legal channels, these syndicates created layers of financial complexity that would take years for law enforcement to uncover. The use of legitimate businesses not only protected their criminal activities, but also integrated them deeper into society, allowing them to evade detection for long periods. Violence and control. Criminal syndicates have always relied on violence as a means of maintaining control over their operations. Figures like El Chapo of the Sinaloa cartel were notorious for their brutal tactics, using fear and intimidation to crush opposition. Violence was not only a tool to enforce loyalty, but also a message to anyone who dared to challenge their authority. The Mexican cartels, in particular, became infamous for their extreme acts of violence, including public executions, kidnappings, and brutal massacres. These acts were often carried out in broad daylight, meant to send a clear message to rivals, law enforcement, and even civilians: comply or face the consequences. Syndicates also used violence to control territories and eliminate threats within their ranks. Betrayal was often met with deadly retribution, ensuring that members feared disloyalty more than they feared the law. By maintaining a reign of terror, these criminal empires could keep their operations running smoothly, instilling a sense of constant fear in everyone they encountered. The journey into the criminal underworld doesn't end here. Stay tuned for our next video, Fatal Obsession: The Twisted Mind of a Serial Killer. Hit that subscribe button now to uncover the dark truth before it's too late.